Skyline International.
Thank you. Hi to everyone. Welcome to our new roundtable about the freedom of expression in Tunisia, opportunities and challenges, an activity that I have organized as director of Skyline International, and that I hope that it will help us understand how Tunisia, this great country in the north of Africa between Libya and Algeria, of roughly almost 12 million people, has evolved in this last year, since in December 2010, the so-called Yasmin Revolution began in the country. Tunisia, I mean, as I was mentioning, we're very close now to celebrate 10 years of the events that sparked the revolution in Tunisia, but not only in Tunisia, in the whole region. We shall not forget that Tunisia was the first country to initiate reforms, political reforms, serious political reforms. And perhaps we could argue that today it's one of the most successful in not applying these reforms and developing into what we can call a democracy, a modern democracy. Let's talk about some facts, interesting facts. Tunisia approved a new constitution. No, I'm not mistaken. By 2011, it was approved. Since then, we had 4 rounds of elections, 9 different cabinets. So we have seen a very interesting and vibrant political development. According to Matthew Cassell, a journalist and researcher in North Africa and the Middle East, regarding security, for instance, he said there is kind of freedom that you cannot find in other parts of the region. He was referring to, despite all the issues that he found in the country, he's been working there for a long time, he feels the country, despite all this, is in a very good phase, historic phase, if you want to, where there is freedom, where freedom exists. And in another, for instance, in another documentary, I was seeing, it was mentioned, despite the economic crisis, the country has managed to maintain one of the most important gains of its revolution, the freedom of press and assembly. And as you know, today I want to speak about this, freedom of the press, freedom of expression in Tunisia. So I thought it was a very nice quote to tell you. However, despite these successes, this positive success, we also find some problems. And I would say there are perhaps small problems, but they are becoming really, really crucial. I'm talking about, for instance, the economy and the debt, which is not a small problem, as you can imagine.
Okay, Daniel, can I just translate the introduction first, and then we get to the second?
Okay.
مرحبا بالجميع، مرحب فيكم في ويبينار عن الحرية في التعبير في تونس. أنا دانيال، عم بقدم هذا الويبينار عن طريق سكايلاين انترناشونال. حبينا لنعبر عن حرية الرأي الموجودة في تونس، وبالأخص بمناسبة حلول 10 سنين تقريبا على بداية الثورة الفكرية في تونس، والتي بدأت في ديسمبر 2010، أو ما نعرفه بالربيع العربي وتأثيره على سكان تونس بشكل خاص، والمنطقة العربية بشكل عام، أو الشرق الأوسط خلينا نحكي. كما ونعتبرها ثورة تونس هي الأكثر نجاحا في المنطقة. إحدى النقاط المهمة اللي صدرت عن الثورة التونسية هي إصدار وتطبيق وتصدير دستور جديد، ومن هناك بلشنا نشوف تطورات كثيرة، منها 4 انتخابات نوعا ما ديمقراطية كما إحدى التعليقات اللي قرأتها لأحد الكتاب أنه هناك نوع خاص ومختلف من الحرية في تونس لا يوجد في أي مكان آخر. وفي وثائق آخر رأيت أن أو يقولون أنه بالرغم من الوضع الاقتصادي في تونس فهي دولة حافظت على الحرية والديمقراطية نوعا ما بداية من الثورة لحديث الآن. بالرغم من ذلك في عندنا بعض الصعوبات المتمثلة في صعوبات الاقتصادية واللي راح نعرضها في الوقت الحالي.
صحيح لورا، شكرا. It's very good. Thank you so much. I will try to not go too long. So it's not, because I'm sorry.
I'll stop you anyway when I feel that's too long. It's okay.
I was like a loose cannon. Okay, thank you, Laura, for cutting me there. Yes, so we see some problems as the economy and debt is mounting. Youth unemployment, very large youth unemployment still after 10 years of revolution. For instance, according to some publications, 2/3 of the youth in Tunisia does not trust any political party, no? I think that it's a very interesting fact that we could say. Laura, if you want to, you can continue.
إنه المشاكل بتتمثل حاليا بالأخص في المشاكل الاقتصادية. فمثلا في عندنا بطالة عالية ما بين الشباب التونسي حتى بعد 10 سنين من الثورة التونسية. فبالتالي صار في عندي تشكلت عندنا مشكلة إنه الشباب التونسي لا يثق بالسياسيين الموجودين حاليا.
Okay. So the debate today, I think I would like to focus on it is this young democracy in danger. Is Tunisia democracy in danger? According to Bob Woodward, who is a journalist, he said a very popular phrase: "Democracy dies in darkness." No. I want to know if all these problems that we see, economic crisis, youth unemployment. Also, we could talk about foreign influence or foreign interference, if there is any foreign interference. Also, some accuse of some peoples in the Gulf region trying to influence politics in Tunisia, or Islamism. No, it's another topic. No, Islamism that also many argue that in Tunisia or the democracy in Tunisia could be affected by Islamism. And I wonder if all these problems are putting Tunisia in danger, or Tunisia, is slowly in the coming future will be able to navigate these turbulent waters. So, hi David, how are you? Hi David.
Hi, how are you? How are you doing?
Thank you so much for showing up on time, just on time. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, shall we begin? I think we could start. Let me ask you. Let me see 1 second because I want to see. Let's start with Mansour. Hi Mansour, how are you?
How are you?
Should I translate first?
Yes, please, Laura. Or
يعني سوف نركز اليوم في هذا النقاش على مدى الخطورة الحاصلة على ديمقراطية تونس. وكما يقول صحفي بوب, I did not hear the family name, but anyway.
Bob Woodward.
اوكي. الديمقراطية تموت في الظلام. فبعيدا عن المشاكل الاقتصادية التي سنتكلم عنها وعن البطالة التي نتجت ما بين الشباب التونسي، فيجب أن نتكلم أيضا عن هل يؤثر التدخل الخارجي على ديمقراطية تونس، تدخل دول الخليج بالأخص في السياسة التونسية والأسلمة التي تحاول، أو الإسلام، الدول الإسلامية ومحاولة أسلمة تونس. هل تضع تونس في خطر فسنركز في النقاش اليوم على جميع هذه المناحي ونبدأ بمنصور.
Okay, thank you so much, Mansoor. Hi, Mansoor, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for your invitation. I'm happy to be with you. Hi, everyone. So I'm trying to give my reflections on the subject of the meeting from an insider point of view, being myself Tunisian, but I'll be trying to make an abstraction of that and try to be as much objective as possible.
Okay.
Can I begin?
Yes, Mansoor, I just want to say that Mansoor is a political analyst. He also is a tech entrepreneur, if I'm not mistaken. No, you work in technology, and also you are very much close to the you're very familiar with the electoral process. No,
exactly.
Elections, and you were watching very closely elections. So Mansoor, how was Tunisia before these 10 years?
Well, when we are talking about
guys,
Laura, yes.
seconds. اوكي منصور هو اولا محلل سياسي اذا فهمت صح؟
Yes.
ويعمل هو موجود من الداخل خلينا نحكي، فهو راح يحاول يعكس الوضع من الداخل لوجوده في قلب الحدث خلينا نحكي. فراح نسمع هلا عن تونس ما قبل 10 سنوات.
Okay, so we are talking about freedom. It is so clear for everyone here in Tunisia, in the region, in the world also, that we made a very big step towards freedom here in the country, because we cannot talk about a culture of climate of freedom before the revolution. But there are many problems around, and my talk will try to clarify them.
Okay, Laura.
Translation.
هو واضح في تونس لتونس وللعالم أننا قطعنا خطوة كبيرة جدا، حيث أننا قبل الثورة لم نستطع أن نتكلم بحرية، وتقريبا لم توجد حرية الرأي. بالتالي سأوضح فيما سأقول الآن ما تم كيف تأثرت الثورة على موضوع الحرية.
So, thank you. So, in order to assess freedom, I need to define it, because freedom is something that is abstract. We cannot assess a notion, a theoretical notion. So, for me, there are 4 parameters for freedom and freedom of expression, of course, which are the following. First, freedom is development. Development is the ultimate deliverable of freedom. So for people here in Tunisia, if we don't have social and economic development, so freedom doesn't have any value at all. So we need to understand that perspective, because freedom or democracy has not a long history here in our land. So people relate it usually with its ultimate deliverable, which is social development. And because we don't have development after 10 years of democracy, people still think that we don't have freedom, or they think that freedom has no value.
All right, okay. Laura?
أبدأ في بداية بتعريف الحرية. عند الحديث عن الحرية يجب تعريفها، وقد ترتبط الحرية بالعديد من المناحي. فبداية أول مصطلح مرتبط بالحرية هو التطور. الحرية دون التطور الاجتماعي والسياسي لا تعني شيء، ولقد لا نصل إلى الديمقراطية دون وجود حرية اجتماعية وسياسية. والشعب التونسي في هذه الحالة يعتقد أنه سيصل إلى الديمقراطية عن طريق الحرية الاجتماعية أولاً. بالتالي الحرية والتطور أو التطور الاجتماعي خلينا نحكي مرتبطتان ارتباطاً قوياً في هذا الموضوع.
Okay, شكراً. إيمان. stop you there because I'm going to we will continue discussing this. Very important point you bring about. Now I would like to continue with the other guests so I can introduce them into the debate. Okay, let's continue with Kevin. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Daniel, great to see you. Thank you for bringing us together.
Okay, Kevin. Thank you. No, thank you. I'm very glad that everything worked out very well. Kevin, Kevin de Jesus, the Jesus, because we say Jesus in Spanish, we say Jesus.
Your next door neighbor, Portuguese, we say de Jesus. I
think it's a beautiful name. Associate Professor, International Relations at Johnson & Wales University. Kevin, he's an expert in Tunisia politics and in the MENA region. Kevin, can you tell us how was Tunisia before in relationship in its region and in the Mediterranean basin and in this area?
Well, Tunisia is a fascinating example of the post-colonial promise that in some ways is represented by the origins of a secular state embracing modernity, if you will, however problematic that construction can be, of the Bourguiba regime. And in many ways, Tunisia has always stood out for its development in comparison, in considering Mansour's, very critical intervention there, is really looking at Tunisia as a more developed, particularly around women's rights and in other areas, from its counterparts in North Africa, certainly, and its family law, these areas. These structures, in many respects, all be speaking to the seeds of democratic practice and possibility being present, of course. But the question of including U.S. foreign policy and its role in the region, particularly in this notion of the sectarian container, what I like to call the authoritarian container, excuse me, which is something that the United States and other Western powers have long embraced, which is that an autocratic leader like Zinedine Ben Ali was necessary in North Africa and the rest of the region because it would keep the lid on Islamist revolution that swept from 1979 onward in the fear of the rise of Islamism as the 80s pressed on, and that it was necessary to keep Tunisia free, quote unquote, in that way.
So it was sort of marriage of convenience. The relationship we had with the former regime, it was just convenient for us, and that's why we support it. Is that correct, Kevin?
I would say, in some ways, a marriage of grand strategy, right? For the United States to maintain its very strong role in the region, it would need to have strong allies that it could prop up, which we know, for instance, Egypt has been a long-standing example of that, but also of this deployment of what I call the authoritarian container, where these leaders who are very intensive autocratic, decades-long leaders have been put in power and propped up not to preserve human rights and freedom in the notion of freedom of expression and the individual and collective well-being that comes with human rights as they're fully realized, but rather to prevent the rise of Islamist parties, and we saw that with Ennahda.
It was not a priority. We had other priorities. Security was a priority. Immigration was another priority, and human rights seems to be very low in the agenda. Right? Thank you so much, Kevin. Now.
I will translate.
Yes, please. Yes, Laura.
Yeah, that was too long. I'll try my best. Okay. So, okay. كان معنا كيفن متخصص في سياسة تونس والمنطقة. سؤال دانيال كان كيف كانت تونس ما قبل الثورة أو بشكل عام. فجواب كيفن كان إنه تونس هي مثال ممتاز عن الدول التي تخلصت أو بداية من الاستعمار، والتي طورت نفسها لحد ما نجحت في التطور في الكثير من النواحي، منها حقوق الإنسان وبالأخص حقوق المرأة مقارنة بدول أخرى في المنطقة وخاصة دول الإفريقية. لفت نظرنا كمان كيفن لأمور مهمة، وهي التدخل الخارجي بالأخص تدخل أمريكا في منطقة أفريقيا بشكل عام، ووجود حلفاء لها بالمنطقة لحد ما تفرض سيطرة وتضع قاعدة لتحاول من منع انتشار حقوق الإنسان والحرية في التعبير في هاي الدول اللي بتعتبرها كهدف لإلها يعني. بالتالي كان عندي وجود شخصيات معينة في هاي الدول وقواعد لمصلحة أمريكا كثير مهمة، وتونس كانت من الدول اللي قاومت هذا الشيء واللي وصلت في تطورها في مجال حقوق الإنسان لأبعد الحدود في مواجهة أمريكا أو غيرها من التدخلات الخارجية. هذا الملخص.
I'm amazed that you were able to do it. I'm amazed.
مبروك.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, so it's this tension between priorities that we see that Tunisia was playing out. Let's continue, I think, with Claire. Hi, Claire. How are you? Remember that we need Laura to translate, so we tried to make some stops. Okay, we tried to make some stops so she can translate. Okay, Claire. Of course, I would like to know what you think about what happened before, how Tunisia was, and also if you could add something also about the role of women, in society, and how was it before, and how it has changed, if it has changed at all in these 10 years.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel, for inviting me to this discussion. It's already off to such a fascinating start, and to Laura for doing this incredible translation. I'm just absolutely blown away by you doing this. My dissertation research I conducted in Tunisia in 2008 and 2009, so it was very shortly before the beginning of what's called the revolution usually, or the beginning of the Arab Spring, or the Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia. And the climate in Tunisia in 2008 and 2009 was that it was, as Nouri Ghana and Amy Callender and Sami Zemni and other researchers describe in their edited volume, The Making of the Tunisian Revolution, was one large surveillance state, that you had to be extremely vigilant at all times because you were probably being watched. If you weren't being watched, you could really never know that, or if you weren't being listened to, you could never really know that. So people had very veiled ways of criticizing Ben Ali and the regime. So for example, there's Larissa Shomiak's research on how men would use soccer metaphors and discussions about soccer and in stadiums chants that were veiled political criticisms that were just absolutely layered with curses and things like that, or other kinds of jokes.
Yeah, sorry to stop you. Yeah, right there. So she can translate. Yes.
Okay. كلير عملت الدراسة أو التركيز في دراستها كان عن السنتين 2008 و2009 ما قبل الثورة والربيع، ما نسميه بالربيع العربي. فبقول إنه العديد من الباحثين وصفوا الأجواء، خلينا نحكي، أو الوضع في تونس بهذيك الفترة ما قبل الثورة يعني قابل للنقد، خلينا نحكي، كان المراقبة شديدة من ناحية الأمن على الناس ما شو بيحكوا شو بيسمعوا إلى آخره. كان في عندي نقد كبير للنظام بهذولاك السنتين، ويعني كان في عندي رقابة عالية على تعليقات الناس ونقدهم للنظام الموجود.
I would like to add something, Claire, before you continue. Claire Auslanti Porter is the Director of Gender and Sexuality Studies and Professor at University of Miami. Sorry, Claire, that I forgot to introduce you properly. Claire, can you translate?
كلير هي رئيسة قسم الدراسات الجندرية في جامعة ميامي، no? University of Miami.
Okay, so Claire, can you continue?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry Claire, I had to say something. Okay. كلير رح تحكي لنا اليوم عن التغيير اللي صار على وضع النساء كمان ما بعد الثورة. نسيت أترجم السؤال فعليا.
Okay. Continue, Claire.
Yeah, so in terms of women's status and women's rights in Tunisia, it's complicated. So part of what happened since the very beginning of Tunisia's post-colonial period under Bourguiba was that women's rights were really rolled out as a state project under Bourguiba and his regime to do many things, among which was to promote Tunisia as a very unusual, modern place in the Middle East and North Africa that was at the vanguard of modernity among the quote-unquote Arab region. And part of this had to do with Bourguiba's complex relationship with France and his sort of love and adoration for France at the same time that he was a fighter, a freedom fighter. So there's that element of it, and then there's how the state can use feminism as an apparatus for its power and control. So, okay. For example, Tunisia took away the right for men to have more than one wife, which is usually thought of as a Muslim right for men to have more than one wife. And that was touted as a very progressive move. But for Bourguiba, it was really necessary to do that to break down tribal alliances in parts of the country that didn't support him. So state feminism and studies of state feminism are that there are always interests in that kind of use or promotion of feminism in that regard. In terms of women's place in the economic system of Tunisia before the revolution and now, it's pretty dismal.
Okay, let me get only the first point first. So موضوع النساء في تونس تقول كلير إنه كان شوي معقد، وذلك بالأخص تحت نظام بورقيبة، لأنه كانت المرأة تستخدم كوسيلة لإظهار التطور والتقدم لدولة تونس، وطبعا أمام الدول العربية بداية، وثانيا أمام فرنسا اللي برقبة كان وضع تونس في منطقة خلاف مع دولة فرنسا. بالتالي لمحاولة إظهار تطور وتقدم دولة تونس كانت إحدى الوسائل المستخدمة هي الحركة النسوية وتقدمها في الدولة التونسية لإثبات هذه النظرية. Yeah, thank you, Claire. You can go on.
We will come back, Claire, to this. What you're telling us, I think, is extremely important and so interesting. We will come to this. Also, I would like to continue with, I don't know, Abdul Salam. Are you there, Abdul Salam Zubairi? Is he there? I can't see him. Abdul Salam?
No, I can see no one with this name. Oh, no, maybe yes. Yes, he is here.
It is, no, it's not. I can see Abdul Salam. Maybe he's.
No, this is Abdul Haq. No, we have no Abdul Salam.
So maybe he had problems in connection. So shall we continue with David? Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
So David, I wanted to make you the same question. You know, how was Tunisia later? But in your case, since you're an expert in the relationship between Tunisia and Spain, and in the European Union context, perhaps too, how do you think? Do you feel any change in these 10 years as a journalist, as someone that is, looking into Tunisia and seeing things evolve? It is changing the relationship with other countries too. Elora? One second for
Okay.
ديفيد متخصص في العلاقة ما بين تونس وإسبانيا. فسؤال دانيال لديفيد هو في هدول 10 سنين هل لاحظنا تغيير على علاقة تونس بغيرها من الدول وبالأخص إسبانيا اللي هو تخصصه لديفيد.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, and thanks a lot, Laura. Shukran Jazilan for inviting me to participate in this debate. I can talk personal experience just from the time of the revolution when there was the democracy. But from my experience, from my studies, I can say that in the past, Tunisia was from the European Union, and for Spain, just something like a state who can trade, a state you can, let's say that for the International Monetary Fund, it was something like they declared Tunisia something like a very profitable country in the very beginning of the century. So for European Union, Tunisia was something like a stable state to trade, to have relations, something like a country that it seems to be stable. And stable was the paradigm of the European Union and for Spain and for the other Mediterranean countries, just to have relations. And this kind of paradigm is in opposition of the European Union values of the foreign affairs external action. I don't know if you want to stop here or.
Yes, Laura, please.
Yeah. Okay, David. اوكي من خبرتي تونس كانت دولة مهمة جدا للتجارة واعتبرت للاتحاد الأوروبي دائما حتى ما قبل الثورة كدولة ثابتة في أهميتها من ناحية التجارة من ناحية مصالح للجميع داخل الاتحاد الأوروبي. Yeah, you can
continue.
Yeah, and we have to differentiate. We have to differ the foreign affairs policy of the European Union as a whole and the foreign affairs policy of each state. But it's very important that they are in coalition regarding to the North Africa and the Maghreb and the Masrek. And it's very important because when there was the revolution coming in Tunisia, I remember the position of Nicolas Sarkozy, the president of France at that time. There was at that time there was selling arms to suffocate the rebellion, and it was just against the values of the European Union and the democracies in Europe, Spain, Italy, and the others. And it was very important because at that time,
sorry, David, for interrupting, but who were the ones who were? Okay, again.
France, the president of France, Monsieur Sarkozy, at that time, there was selling arms to suffocate the demonstrations in Tunisia. There was a very famous episode that there was selling from her Ministry of Defense, Michel Alot-Marie. They was trying to have a meeting with Ben Ali just to talk and to sell this kind of stuff to suffocate the demonstrations, tear gas and these other ones. So this is a very good example. Just was the alliance of the European Union and some countries like France. So from one hand, they were saying that we are in favor of human rights and democracy, but with the other hands, they were doing not just this, they were just in favor of stability, whatever it means for the region and for the people. And it's also very bad for us, for the people who are living in the other side of the Mediterranean. I will talk later about this.
Okay. يجب أن نفرق ما بين السياسة الخارجية للاتحاد الأوروبي بشكل عام والسياسة الخارجية للدول بحد ذاتها. فمثلا مثال مهم جدا على ما حصل في فترة الثورة التونسية أن فرنسا اجتمعت ببن علي ودعمت أو باعت الأسلحة لإبطال الثورة التونسية لأجل إبطال انتشار الديمقراطية في دولة تونس، رغم أن ذلك يعتبر ممنوعا في قانون الاتحاد الأوروبي، ولكن هذا يعتبر مثال جدا مهم على الدول التي خالفت هذه القوانين من أجل مصالح خاصة، وتؤثر هذه القرارات أو هذه التصرفات لبعض الدول على غيرها من الدول، وخاصة الموجودة في الجهة الأخرى من البحر المتوسط. أتوقع أنه يقصد إسبانيا في هذه الحالة.
But I think that perhaps we could also have Dori to help you a little bit, because you're being, very intense. And since we don't have Abdel Salam, I don't know if Dori wants to. I'm just, so we can alternate a little bit. Just you can rest, because I think we are kind of.
I'm still okay until now. If Dorothy wants to, I'm fine.
It takes us a translator, and it's really a lot. It just because we don't see Abdel Salam today, so she could help too. So now I think we put sort of the cards on the table, right? Now, how things have changed. I mean, the revolution, what did it change? Now, in this, from the revolution to where we are today. And soon after, I want to move to what we expect. No, but now, the Tunisia we have today, can we say it was a success story? Can we say Tunisia is a model? It's a model for future changes or reforms in the region, and I'm referring to other Arab countries, for the whole world, but or maybe it could be. I mean, could be Tunisia become a model for the world? I mean, I think it's also a very interesting question. But I'm referring to more the region and the Arab context. How do you see this? Or it is too fragile? It is just too weak to, if we consider other problems, economic problems, now with COVID-19, Islamism, as I mentioned before, foreign interference, or how do you think these things are affecting today's Tunisia? Claire? Okay. Now, Claire, if you want, could Claire start?
Translate first. كيف تغيرت الأمور وماذا تغير ما بعد الثورة مع تونس التي نعيش، أو مع تونس اليوم؟ هل تعتبر نجاحا للثورة، وهل تعتبر تونس مثلا لغيرها من الدول في العالم بشكل عام والوطن العربي بشكل خاص؟ ومع الأخذ بعين الاعتبار جميع المشاكل الموجودة، المشاكل الاقتصادية والبطالة وغيرها من المشاكل التي تحدثنا عنها سابقا، فكيف ستتطور تونس ما بعد اليوم؟
Claire?
Okay. Tunisia is a case in point of what happens when neoliberal economic policy is foisted upon a developing country. So neoliberalism, meaning like I think the word in Arabic that really encompasses what a lot of that has meant is infitah, or this opening, this rapid opening that Ben Ali was certainly responsible for, but certainly his predecessor was to a certain extent as well, has
Mansour,
meant that.
Let me cut you there. Well, can you, Dori, would you like to translate?
I didn't hear the question. Please repeat again.
Don't worry, Mansour. I just asking Dori if she can translate, or Laura, what Claire just said.
So تونس تعتبر أو وضحت عنا فكرة صورة الضغط اللي بتعمل النيوليبرالية في تونس، واللي كان مسؤول عنها أو المسؤول عن نشرها بن علي في تونس يعني بشكل عام. الانفتاح اللي صار والنيوليبرالية اللي صارت في تونس اللي كان مسؤول عنها بن علي، بس ما كملتش لسه.
Thank you. Mansour, you know, was talking about how also I think she was making sort of connection with economic development as you were, she's talking about neoliberalism and how these things, you know, could have an impact in Tunisia's economy and politics. What do you think? Do you think it's about it's about business, or it's more about reforms, taking seriously certain reforms that perhaps hasn't been done yet in the political level? I mean, do you think we can talk of a successful story? Is this a model of revolution, Ayman?
فدانيال بيوضح انه كلير تحاول الربط ما بين النيوليبرالية والاقتصاد في تونس. فالسؤال ياتي ان كان لمنصور ان كان تاثير هذا الربط على المستوى له علاقه على مستوى اداره الاعمال او البزنس او في مستويات السياسيه اكثر. إذا بنعمل هذا الربط ما بين النيوليبرالية والاقتصاد في تونس، فهل بيجعلنا نقدر نحكي إنه الثورة التونسية كانت نجاح أو كموديل إنه مثال للنجاح، خلينا نحكي؟
Well, all of this is important to talk about. Neoliberalism, gender, Islamism, but don't lose the focus that we are trying to assess freedom and freedom of expression as an enabler for development and for good being for Tunisian people. What I would like to mention is that we need to put a framework of understanding of the Tunisian landscape for the Tunisians themselves, but also for all the international community of experts and decision makers who deal with the Tunisian context. So when we are talking about neoliberalism, gender, or Islamism, we need to put that on land and try to look to them from inside, how Tunisia look to them, how the Tunisian history of this young state has performed with these parameters. And I personally think that those are not the most important parameters regarding freedom and freedom of expression. The parameters that are important are, as I said before, development, democracy, security, and freedom. These are the four main parameters I suggest to develop it if I have time, of course.
Can you just repeat the four ones, please?
Development,
development,
yeah, democracy, security, and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Mansour, do you think these four parameters that I think are very key, as you mentioned, do we see progress in these 10 years? Have you witnessed progress in these four fronts?
Thank you for the question. Yes. So for the development side, we are in a real problem in Tunisia. We are observing an economic and social problem that is very critical to the present and the future of the country, and by consequence to the future of freedom in this country. For the second parameter, which is democracy, we have implemented a very vibrant democratic experience in this country in a land that is not very positive to such experience. But this technical implementation meets also some problems. Today, everyone agrees in Tunisia that we have a problem with the political system, which is in place, and the voting system also. And if we don't work on modifying them, adapting them, learning from the 10 years experience, that would be disenabling to the future of freedom also.
Okay, Laura, can you continue?
Yeah, okay. اوكي. مهم جدا التحدث عن النيوليبراليه، الجندريه، الاشلمه والى اخره من النقاط التي ذكرتها كلير وغيرها، لكن يجب ان لا ننسى التركيز على زبده الموضوع، على اهميه الموضوع الذي نتكلم عنه، وهو التركيز على حريه التعبير في تونس. يجب أن نرى كل شيء بحسب ما يراه التونسيون أنفسهم، ونضع كل هذه النظريات على أرض الواقع ونراها بعيون التونسيين. وأنا لا أرى، منصور يقول أنه لا يرى أن هذه هي المقاييس المناسبة لتحديد وضع الحرية في تونس بشكل عام. فالمقاييس الأهم في نظره هي التنمية، الديمقراطية، الأمن والحرية. وفي الحديث عن المقياس الأول وهي التنمية، فنحن نواجه مشكلة كبيرة، مشكلة اقتصادية كبيرة، مما يؤثر على التنمية والتطور داخل دولة تونس. أما المقياس الثانية الديمقراطية، فنحن قطعنا شوطا جيدا في الديمقراطية، ولكن ما زلنا نواجه بعض المشاكل. فلدينا مشكلة في الطبقة السياسية في الدولة بداية، ومشكلة في نظام الاقتراع والتصويت. وإن لم نحاول التطوير من هذه المشاكل، فسنعود لمواجهة مشاكل أكبر منها قد كنا عشناها سابقا.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Now, Kevin, what with Mansour Ayumi saying, let me continue with Kevin. Kevin, he's talking about how these four principles, development, democracy, security, and freedom, do you think today Tunisians can speak freely in comparison to this post-colonial period you were describing? Today, Tunisians are expressing themselves more freely and openly than before?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. And I think in terms of whether or not Tunisian people can speak freely, really can be measured in a few ways. I certainly think that there is a shrinking space for Tunisian freedom of expression, including not just speech, but also expressing and assembling one's political ambitions and critiques. You know, you can look to simple actions like in 2019 when there was a young person basically criticizing a local leader and was charged for defaming that person on Facebook and for defaming the state and Islam and these kinds of things. So I think that what's interesting about what Mansour is speaking of that's really critical is this question of what structures exist within the Tunisian state to ensure that the citizens are able to be the sovereign that their constitution guarantees them. Tunisia is a republic, so the citizens are sovereign.
Let me stop you there, Kevin. But don't we see more publications? Don't we see more newspapers out, more people, more TV shows, more channels? It is, because if I understood before, during Bourguiba's time, it was very hard to publish. You needed a license. To get your license was hard. It was only 2 channels on TV before. I think, correct me if I'm mistaken. And how did it change? Now we can see more media, more newspapers out there. There's been an explosion of the media because of the revolution, or can we say this happened or not?
I mean, the example that I was giving you is important because there are more media outlets, and there is a greater regeneration of media life in the country. However, it continues to come under pressure, and which is why we can look to the numbers of what exists in terms of media outlets, these kind of things. But the human rights reports, continue to identify that they're not transparent. The question of the involvement in the relationship of the government to these media outlets are really critical. And when you're trying to discern freedom, the question is, can I put something, that criticizes my government or political leader on a social media or a media outlet as an editorial or however form it takes, and that stand, and society is able to consume that and determine whether that position is valid or is not. Yeah. So I think that there is promise in the structure of the state exists. I mean, there is within the Constitution the right to information. Article 31 is very, very critical in terms of the right to freedom of expression. These kinds of things exist. And I think that Mansour, I'd be keen to hear from your view, if you think I'm accurate or not, is that they are also under threat. The more that the government faces internal dissent, as well as challenges in terms of accountability, then you see the space shrinking in the hand of the government, increasing over media outlets and individuals, and you see these instances increase more.
For Laura, since we did a very long,
it was really long. Okay, I'm almost lost, but okay, so let me try.
So we could agree that I'm just one before you go. Sort of summary what he said. So despite these sort of reforms now and some new articles, there is still some pressure on the media, no, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken? You feel?
Well, the media and the public, right? I mean, it's interesting because if you look at the data from Freedom House, Tunisia is considered a free country. And, its indicators are very, very important. You can go to their website and read how they make their assessment and quantify it, and then decide if a country meets a ranking for free or not. But, under freedom of expression, it's interesting because Tunisia only gets a 2 out of 4, right? Where other indicators, they have much higher, but they only get a 2 out of 4 in freedom of expression. And it's because of these dynamics of, allowing a presence, but controlling it, that is what is the pivot for this question. I'd like to hear from Mansour and Claire, your thoughts about that assessment.
Can you just do a summary of what we were discussing?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll try my best. السؤال دانيال في البداية كان هل يستطيع التونسيين التعبير بحرية أكثر من السابق الآن؟ فبداية كيفن يقول إنه هناك مساحة متقلصة للتعبير عن الحرية في التعبير عند التونسيين. فإحدى الأمثلة التي ذكرها كيفن إنه في 2019 رأينا شاب ينتقد النظام، وقد نشر ذلك في مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي وقد تم معاقبته، وقد رأينا ذلك في الكثير من المراجع. علق دانيال بأنه رغم كل ذلك فتونس كان لديها فقط قناتين على التلفاز مثلا. الآن نرى منشورات أكثر، نرى توسع أكثر في مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي. فكان جواب كيفن أنه هناك حرية في التعبير قد تكون أكثر من السابق، ولكن تحت ضغط من الطبقة السياسية الموجودة في تونس، بالرغم من وجود بعض البنود في الدستور التونسي الجديد والتي تطالب أو تعطي حرية الرأي والتعبير للتونسيين، ولكن ما زلنا نرى هذا الضغط داخل دولة تونس. كما وذكر أن تونس تعتبر دولة حرة بحسب العديد من الإحصائيات التي حصلت، ولكن نرى أنها حصلت على 2 من 4 في مقياس الحرية في التعبير، وذلك رغم نجاحهم في تحقيق أرقام جدا أعلى من ذلك في أنواع أخرى من الحريات، وذلك يعود إلى الضغط الحاصل على التونسيين من الطبقات السياسية الحاكمة في الوقت الحالي.
Thank you, Laura. Claire, now she wanted to. Claire, try to make a pause, Claire, so Laura can translate quickly too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have concerns about the Tunisian media landscape and freedom of expression, but less so about, well, the problem with the government's relationship with media in Tunisia is that very powerful families who were large media conglomerate families before the revolution still maintain most control over the Tunisian media. And those families have a vested interest in influencing the government. So for example, Nabil Kairaoui, who is affiliated with Berlusconi in Italy and has been brought to court before on tax evasion charges, right? Who has a lot of ties to sort of organized corruption, shall we say, is a big player in Tunisian media. So media's influence in being able to have a large role in manipulating people through consumption of it, as is happening here in the United States. We're very familiar with that here in the U.S. as well. It has no small part, and so it's very difficult to have a democracy when Tunisia remains in so much debt. So I can pause there.
Okay.
For Laura, if you like.
لدي مخاوف بخصوص المشهد الإعلامي التونسي، فنحن نواجه مشاكل عدة، وخاصة مشكلة سيطرة بعض العائلات التونسية على الإعلام التونسي. فمثلا في إيطاليا لدينا نبيل كراوي، والذي يسيطر على أو يتبع منظومة فساد كاملة ويسيطر على جزء من الإعلام التونسي. فبالتالي سنستمر في مواجهة العديد من الصعوبات في تونس في حال بقي الإعلام التونسي مسيطر عليه من بعض الجهات أو العائلات المحددة، والتي توجه الإعلام بشكل غير ديمقراطي أو غير بدون حرية.
شكرا لورا. Now David is going to continue, but let me say that Abdel Salam Zubeidi finally was able to come. We were waiting for him, so I'm really glad to see him. Hello, Abdel Salam, can you hear us? مرحبا أستاذ، سمعتنا؟ You need to unmute yourself.
He's unmuted though.
I think he's trying to connect. Okay, so David, while Abdel Salam tries to solve his problems, can you continue?
Yeah, I would like to return to your previous question. I would like to say that Tunisia is a very good example for democracy in the Maghreb and also for the rest of the world. But I feel from my experience and from my conversation with Tunisian people that they are very sad inside the country because they are feeling like they are depressed. They don't have this economic demands resolved. They feel that the democracy is something like they can't change. So this is an example for outside, but this is from inside. I feel like the people is something like depressed or worried about the situation of the country.
Yes. So there is risk. The economic situation could extinguish this sort of experiment. If the economic no results.
And regarding to the freedom of expression and the media panorama, I'm very agree with Kevin and Claire. But this is our typical problems for mature democracies. And from my experience in Tunisia, these years are going very fast. So they have something like a period of explosion of NGOs, political parties, 100 of them. And there was something like this period of the economic problems of the mature democracies, that the people who has the power and who has the media has a huge speaker to raise their messages. And they have also the disaffection for the young people, and they have also the populism tap with Nabil El-Karoui and also with the Slim Riah in 2015. So they are all together.
Wait. We need Laura to translate me.
Sorry.
Okay, Laura, can you speak please?
Sorry.
بداية تعليق دافيد يبدأ بشعوره أن التونسيين ما زالوا غير سعيدين أو حتى في حالة اكتئاب وتخوف داخل دولة تونس، وذلك بسبب الوضع الاقتصادي وعدم وضوح المستقبل الاقتصادي للدولة في الوقت الحالي. كما يعلق على ما قالته كلير بالنسبة لموضوع النشاط الإعلامي، فيقول أنه بالرغم من سيطرة بعض الجهات على الإعلام التونسي إلا أنه هناك بعض التدخلات من السياسيين ومن الشعب والنشطاء والمؤسسات غير ربحية في الإعلام التونسي، مما يجعل هناك وجود خليط من الجهات المتدخلة في الإعلام التونسي بشكل عام.
عبد السلام.
الحمد لله. هل الصوت واضح؟
ايه واضح.
واضح الحمد لله.
بالنسبة لي واضح. لاعب يقول تسمع. Can you hear him well, guys?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you. Abdel Salam is a very Tunisian expert, also political analyst and advisor for many political members of parliament. Can you translate, please? Claire, Laura.
So عبد السلام أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا مرحبا.
محلل سياسي.
نعم. أنا نعم من تونس. نعم.
عبد السلام
نعم.
إذا بتتكلم لهجة تونسية شوي لو سمحت.
حاضر.
عشان أعرف
حاضر.
Abdel Salam, is Tunisia becoming a model for the region? Laura, can you translate?
هل تعتبر تونس مثالا لغيرها من الدول في المنطقة؟
حرية التعبير، أنا أحكي بموضوع حرية التعبير كنموذج للمنطقة.
نعم. اعتبار تونس نموذج عبارة أعتبرها مبالغ فيها نوعا ما. لماذا؟ لأنه لكل دولة من الدول خصوصياتها، لكل دولة من الدول يخلي تونس، لا أقول مثال، ولكن أقول أنه تونس لها من الاحتذاء بها فقط، ولكن ليست مثالا.
أستاذ عبد السلام، بس عندك مشكلة شوي في الصوت.
نعم. أعيد.
لا تمام، أخذت الفكرة العامة. So considering Tunisia as a model in the region, he considers it as an exaggeration because he sees that every country has its own its own. Every country has its own politics, let's say, and its own ميزات أو خصوصيات. هذا يساعدني. Okay, I just got lost there because it was cutting there. بعدها شوي قطع الصوت وأنا ضعت.
نعم أقول. أعيد.
بس آخر شيء بعد ما إنه هي مبالغة ولكل دولة خصوصيتها، فتونس
عندها مسار خاص وإلا بعدها.
عبد السلام ما عم بسمعك منيح.
هكا واضح؟ هكا
إذا ممكن تبعد السماعة شوي.
نعم هكذا.
No, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Just leave it.
Okay.
Yes.
جيد هكا. نعم.
Yes. Perfect.
واصلا. لكن ما هي المواطن اللي يمكن تكون نموذج يحتذى به؟ هو في التشريعات التونسية في مجال الإعلام يمكن أن يحتذى بها في الدول الأخرى. مثلا في دستورنا هناك مأسسة لحرية التعبير في الفصل 31 و 32. نتمنى أن باقي الدول العربية في المنطقة تأخذ هذين الفصلين وتحذو حذوهما. مثلا أنه عندنا في الدستور تنصيص على وجود هيئة تعديلية للإعلام السمعي البصري. ما معنى هذا؟ معناه أنه قطاع الأساسي في حرية التعبير وهو الإعلام ليس من صلاحيات الدولة وإنما من صلاحيات أهل القطاع. هذوما عنصران يمكن الاحتذاء بهما.
Okay, so there are two two parts okay, wait, let me so he says that in general Tunis as a country could not be a real model in everything, but what makes it a little bit different than other countries, especially in the Arab world, is the legislation that we have in the constitution of Tunis, especially in the freedom of expression, more in the media expression, let's say, like in Article 31 and Article 32 of the Constitution, which is like it issues the okay, I really need help now. I'm done.
I would help if you want. Can I help you?
Please, Mansour, because
so the idea is that the Constitution builds the institutional framework for media governance by the professional people of media and not by the government, which is very important because we have a high independent institution that governs the mediascape in Tunisia.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now because we're running out of time. This discussion is amazing. I'm really happy, but unfortunately, we need to start evolving somehow. We need to start finishing, and I think I would like to move to the third part now. What can we expect in the future? What can we see coming in the 5-10 next years? Do you think Tunisia's democracy will prevail? It will try to navigate these waters, or it is really in danger? What do you see in the coming future? Let's start with Mansour.
Are you going to translate this?
No.
No.
Excuse me. You're right, Mansour.
مداخلة دانيال أن الوقت سينفذ ولم يتبقى لدينا الكثير من الوقت رغم أن النقاش جدا ممتع وجيد. فسؤاله ماذا نتوقع في المستقبل بشأن تونس؟ هل تعتقد أن ديمقراطية تونس سوف ستتقدم في خلال 10 سنوات القادمة أم هي في خطر في الوقت الحالي؟
منصور.
So I personally think that the Tunisian democracy and behind that the Tunisian freedom and freedom of expression is in a critical historical point that we need to leverage here in Tunisia by Tunisians themselves, by the international partners of Tunisia. And this leveraging or this management of this difficult moment need to fix the political system, نظام السياسي, that needs to be changed, because the experience of 10 years gave us the proof that we have a problem on that, with a system that has 3 heads, with two executive heads that are confronting themselves, the presidency and the prime minister. So this is a problem here we need to fix. The second point is thinking a new voting system, which is very important. And if we succeed in that, I think that the Tunisian freedom, Tunisian democracy would have a bright future.
Thank you, Imam Mansour. Yeah. Can you translate? Or Laura, or perhaps you could do it yourself.
فهمته جيدا.
You فهمته? Okay. So Laura. So Abdel Salam or Kevin, let me continue with Kevin. Do you agree, Kevin? Well, how do you see the coming future?
Well, I think that it is like most democratic societies, it's tenuous, and the crisis of COVID has only compounded the economic and structural failures ushered in under neoliberalism, and very much a part of that authoritarian container to sort of revamp the state in this model. And I like to describe that as the internationalization of the state. And so I'd be, keen to hear your thoughts about this. That really, for a country like Tunisia, like many countries, in particular many countries in the Mediterranean, there is the question of what degree of the political, technocratic, more political development elite and scholarly class in this segment of society, the degree to which they are able to leverage internationalization, particularly with the European Union, in balance of those that are invested in the status quo of the state, of a dysfunctional state, of a state that is not delivering the public good. So I think that it's not a question of political socialization in the future of Tunisia. Sometimes that gets trotted out in terms of explaining these issues in North Africa in particular, which I think is
so as a summary basis. But as a summary, Kevin, we could say that you see this sort of mixture between the economic part and the political part. Like, these two things need to work together in trying to solve, the economic issues and the problems with some legislation and laws that we discussed. Is that the case, Kevin?
I mean, I think that generally, yes. What the struggle is, and I'd be curious, Mansour, if you would agree, is that who maintains the most influential networks of power, and to whom are they connected at both internal levels and internationally, and what ways can allies of Tunisia and allies of Tunisian democracy continue to try to strengthen the viability of the state and, of course, its economy, so that those development networks can have a greater power.
Laura is trying to translate. Okay, Laura.
Okay. فهمت.
So
Laura will do a summary. Just summarize it a little bit for everyone.
اوكي كيفن وضح فكره انه الوضع الاقتصادي عم بيزداد سوء كمان في ظل فيروس كورونا حاليا كباقي العالم طبعا. ملخص انه يجب تنسيق بين الجهات السياسيه في الدوله والجهات الاقتصاديه من اجل تحسين التشريعات او تطبيق التشريعات المرتبطه او مش مرتبطه، تشريعات الدستور التونسي وتقدم الدوله من جميع المناحي وبالاخص الحريه. بصراحه البقيه شوي ضعت يعني.
واضحه.
سوري.
عبد السلام تفضل. شو ممكن نستنى في المستقبل؟
تونس اليوم في علاقه بحريه التعبير عموما وحريه الاعلام خصوصا، وتحدث باعتباري اعلام. هناك عده مخاطر. الخطر الاول هو الخوف من العوده الى الوراء للاستبداد. اليوم في المجتمع التونسي بعد تجربة 10 سنوات من الثورة هناك حنين للماضي، وهذا الحنين أصبح يتموقع في مؤسسات دستورية، بل في مؤسسات سياسية، في أحزاب، وأصبحنا نخشى الارتداد إلى الماضي. هذا الخطر الأول. الخطر الثاني.
Stop for Laura so she can translate. It's very important. Yes.
Okay, so Tunisia today is in relation with the freedom of expression in general and the freedom and media freedom, let's say, in specific, is in a big danger because we are really related to the past. It's more related to, more nostalgic to the past. And okay, that's the problem that he's trying to explain for now.
المشكل الثاني هو نفسه اللي تحدث عليه الأستاذ العيوني، هو الصراع السياسي بين رؤوس السلطة الثلاث، أي رئيس البرلمان، رئيس الحكومة، ورئيس الجمهورية، جعل عموم الشعب التونسي يقول أن هذا النموذج من النظام لابد من التراجع عنه، وما نخشاه هو أن يتم التراجع كذلك على مكسب الحرية. هذه النقطة الثانية.
Okay. Can you translate?
So the second problem is the conflict that Mansour also talked about before, that the conflict between the president, the prime minister, and the parliament, the head president of the parliament. And the problem or the preoccupation that we have from the side of the Tunisians, that this conflict must be get rid of, and if not, it would definitely affect the freedom of expression in general in Tunis or between Tunisians.
نعم. الخطر الثالث الذي يهدد الحريات في تونس أولا متعلق بالتشريعات التي لها صلة بالحريات، وهذا فيه كلام كبير. النقطة الأخيرة هي أن النقطة الأخيرة تفضل.
Continue.
Okay, so the third danger is related to the legislations that are related to the freedom of expression.
النقطة الأخيرة هي أنه مع الحريات العامة التي أصبحت شائعة في تونس، هناك لوبيات مال، لوبيات فساد داخلية وخارجية أصبحت تستأثر بالمشهد الإعلامي، وهذا خطر يهدد حقيقة حرية التعبير التي أصبحت في صالح هذه اللوبيات، ويخدمها حتى الإعلاميون ذاتهم. حتى يعني أصبح المجال الإعلامي في تونس مهدد من داخله.
Okay, the last point is that in Tunis exists a lot of corruption lobbies that affect on the media and the media in general, and in the freedom of expression in media in specific. And these corruption lobbies are affecting a lot on the Tunisians and on the الصحفيين.
Journalists.
The Tunisian journalists. And we are facing a problem from inside of the Tunisians or between Tunisians, because journalists are working for these lobbies and they are serving not spreading the freedom of expression in Tunis.
Yes, and that's a really hot topic. Lobbies, foreign intervention or foreign influence. That's definitely one of the big topics that if we had more time, we could talk more. Laura?
يعني لو كان لدينا الوقت أكثر فكان من المهم التحدث عن التدخل الخارجي في الإعلام التونسي وتأثيره على حرية الرأي.
Claire, now I would like to also continue with you. How do you see the coming future for the Tunisian people and Tunisian women?
Yeah, I mean, I think with most.
Okay.
Laura?
Oh, sorry.
كيف ترى كلير حرية الرأي أو التغيير الذي سيحصل في تونس على المجتمع وعلى النساء بشكل خاص من ناحية حرية الرأي؟
I think what's the most important, if we're going to talk about what's relevant and important about issues of women or men in Tunisia, is the class situation in Tunisia. So as long as Tunisia maintains a system that's only been exacerbated or made worse lately, and that is where a small capitalist class holds most of the contracts and works with outside contractors, multinational corporations, and enriches themselves at the expense of most Tunisians, this situation is not going to get better. At this point, Tunisia still holds the debt from nefarious loans from the World Bank and the IMF. And that means that infrastructure, hospitals for most people who can't afford private hospitals, schools for people who can't send their children to private schools, all the rest of the infrastructure is become
what do you mean with MIF?
International Monetary Fund. She meant the International Monetary Fund, the IMF.
صندوق النقد الدولي.
تمام.
صحيح.
Yeah.
تفضل Laura when you can.
اوكي. في ظل وجود الطبقية في المجتمع التونسي قد لا نرى أي تطور في المجتمع التونسي، وبالأخص بوجود طبقة رأسمالية صغيرة تعتبر في تونس والتي تتصرف وتسيطر على المجتمع التونسي بشكل عام. ووفقا لصندوق النقد الدولي فعندنا معظم أو أغلب المجتمع التونسي غير قادر على توفير أو غير قادر للتقدم للعلاج أو التعليم. عندنا مشكلة كمان في البنية التحتية للدولة بسبب سيطرة هذه الطبقة على المجتمع التونسي، وبالتالي وجود الطبقية بشكل عام في تونس راح توقف من تطور أو تطور المجتمع.
Claire, would you like to add something?
Yeah, just I think the last point I would make is that media is part of this whole privatization scheme. And so the idea of a free media would mean that the people, the working class people, not just the elites, would have the right to have an influence in it. And at this point, this is not the case. And in fact, there's legislation in Tunisia right now to further give more sort of control to media outlets through licensing or lack thereof to elite interests. So this isn't really. I mean, it's very difficult to deal with the underlying problem of what real free expression means unless we deal with the economic situation and system.
Yes, clear. I totally agree.
مهم جدا مرة أخرى أن نركز على الإعلام، وذلك لأنه الإعلام الحر يعني وجود أو إعطاء الطبقة العاملة الدور في التعبير والتأثير عن طريق الإعلام. بالتالي التخلص من الجهات التي تسيطر على الإعلام في تونس وإعطاء حرية الرأي للجميع عن طريق الإعلام هي إحدى الخطوات الأهم قبل التعامل مع أي مشاكل أصغر من هذه المشكلة الكبرى، وتؤكد على فكرة أنه يجب التخلص أو التعدي عن المشاكل الاقتصادية بالإعلام، وهي بداية الطريق نحو التحرر الكامل.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Abdul Salam.
نعم. في علاقه بالحريه في علاقه بالاعلام.
You answered the question already about the future. True. Sorry, you're right. So I'm Mansour. No, Mansour, your turn. Then maybe with Kevin after. Okay.
So very quickly, I would like to interact with Kevin questions about the landscape of power that exists in the Tunisian media landscape today. I think that saying that there are some families who control the media, which is true, it doesn't reflect the whole reality of the thing. What I think is that there are the formation of what I call platforms of influence that has been developed with the digital transformation of the Tunisian society. So you find that every platform, you have competing platform. In the head of the platform, there are the political head of that platform. It is a political party or a political person who is fighting for elections. But behind him, you will find many political parties. You will find also many media that are affiliated to him. Sometimes he owns the media, but sometimes he is not owned. And you find a very particular phenomenon that some medias move from one platform to the others, depending on the situations. And behind all that, you will find some NGOs that are distributed in the country who talk to people door to door and make influence. So all this should be, in my opinion, related to some international influencers, countries from the region, from the Arabic region, and international countries that work together with these platforms. What I want to say is that this is not necessarily bad or good. This is a game for the new politics we have today in Tunisia. And what we need really is to have the knowledge about them. We need to have the tools to discover them. And we need to develop a citizenship consciousness about how we discover those platforms and fight against them democratically. Thank you.
Well, and the whole other issue, of course, that is a global phenomenon.
Wait.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I thought he wanted me to respond. Sorry.
اوكي سأجيب سريعا او ساقوم بالرد على سؤال كيفن بخصوص مشهد او القوة المسيطرة داخل المشهد الإعلامي التونسي في هذا الوقت. فنرى دائما أن في كل منصة إعلامية سنجد رأس سياسي يكافح من أجل السلطة، وما وراء هذا الرأس السياسي سنرى سلسلة من الأحزاب. ممكن كنت تقصد منصور الأحزاب والسياسيين الأكبر منه ممن يتحكمون بنفس الطريقة من أجل السلطة. وقد نرى أيضا تنقل من لبعض السياسيين أو الأفراد من منصة إلى أخرى، وذلك بحسب الأفكار التي يروجون لها أو السياسات التي يريدونها. ووراء كل ذلك قد نرى الNGOs المؤسسات غير الربحية تسيطر على هذا المشهد الإعلامي. منصور إذا نسيت إشي احكي لي.
You just forgot the access of media. There are media who are affiliated to this platform of influence, but all the rest is good.
Very good.
تمام. إنه في يعني الفكرة إنه في عنا تسلسل، خلينا نحكي كله مرتبط ببعضه، وبالآخر بنشوف إنه في قوة بتسيطر على قوة وإلى آخره. فهاي هي لعبة السياسيين في تونس في الوقت الحالي، واللي هي لازم تحفزنا إنه نفهمهم أكثر، نكتشفهم أكثر، وبالتالي نحاربهم بديمقراطية.
Okay, Kevin, please, your answer.
What comes to mind is, of course, these social structures. They are, they are embedded in Tunisian society, and they are continually able to acquire different mediums for the expressions of power that Mansour, I think you were talking about. So I don't know if that addresses Mansour, what you're suggesting, but also I think that it's really important to understand that, you know, another conversation in the future, not just for, you know, Tunisia, but for many countries, including some of the West, is the question of, you know, whether or not we will see digital authoritarianism. And, you know, there's a fascinating documentary by the BBC about Tunisia and the Arab Spring and the role of Facebook in that. And it just, I mean, Tunisia has given to much of the world.
You know, the social media, also, it's a very important aspect of freedom of expression. And I think in many countries in the world, we're having a lot of problems with Facebook, with Twitter. You know, there's sort of new rules of the game. You talk about authoritarianism. We don't know. No, we don't know. I mean, there's sort of new things coming to the front. And for us, you know, it's very hard how we manage this. And we see people, you know, with a lot of power in these companies, you know, in Google, Twitter, and Facebook, that they hold the power in their hands, right? So I think for Tunisia, as for other countries in the region, social media, it is something that I wish we could take now and discuss more the role of Facebook and other social media platforms, though we don't have much time today. And now we continue with, after Laura translates or summarizes what I say, I think David, no? David would be doing his last presentation. Yes.
So كيفن يؤكد على أهمية الطبقية الاجتماعية في تونس على على الإعلام التونسي أو الحرية في التعبير داخل الإعلام التونسي. وبنصح بمشاهدة في وثائقي على البي بي سي مهم جدا، بتكلم عن تونس والربيع العربي. فقاطعوا دانيال بأنه في عندنا مشكلة في وسائل التواصل الإعلامي في تونس وفي الوطن العربي بشكل عام، واللي يمكن يجب أن نناقش أهميتها في وقت لاحق، اللي هو تأثير فيسبوك وتويتر ومحاولتهم على السيطرة على الآراء، خلينا نحكي في المجتمع العربي والتونسي بشكل خاص. وهلا بدنا نسمع المشاركة الأخيرة من ديفيد بخصوص هذا الموضوع.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Oh, sorry.
Lower your microphone just a little bit.
Sorry. I think it's fascinating because we are discussing some problems of the democracies that they affect all of us, and I think Claire mentioned very well. So the power of the money, that what is real democracy. But I have to say that it's not just this problem of the mature democracies. That also I think my comrades in Tunisia, they are saying that there are real Tunisian problems regarding to the rest of the authoritarian system of Ben Ali, and that they are afraid that they come together. They are mentioning for instance, the trade union of the journalists. They are mentioning the disinformation law that it was launched last March, focusing in the social media, trying to avoid fake news, but in a way that is something like it can be very dictatorial. So they were very afraid of this trade union. Also, Atef Abrugi from Global Voices, they was very afraid of this issue. And they also very worried about the situation of the trade union of the policemen, that this kind of law that they are debate and re-debate in the parliament, that if you are informating about the situation of policemen in the street, you can be charged. So it's something like I think from outside that Tunisia has this kind of problems that they have in our democracies, and we can fear that we are in danger because we are in danger in the world with democracy. But they also this kind of problems, they are there inside from Tunisia, that the Tunisian people are saying, okay, we have to be aware of the rest of the Benalism that they are present in our society, because we know in Spain change a system is very difficult.
Laura?
اوكي دافيد، تمام. مهم جدا النقاش عن الديمقراطية والمشاكل اللي قد تؤثر عليها، ولكن المشاكل اللي ذكرتها كلير قد تكون صعبة، أو في الحقيقة أو على أرض الواقع، لأنه صعب جدا تغيير جذري في الحكومة مثلا. وبنسمع كثير في تونس نقاشات في البرلمان مثلا حول دور الشرطة في الشوارع والعقوبات اللي قد تقع على الأفراد في حال تم نقاش في الشارع مع أحد أفراد الشرطة. شفنا كمان خوف وقلق كثير من اجتماع الناس على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي. صراحة هذا اللي قدرت ألحقه مبدئيا. ويقول إنه إحنا مثلا في إسبانيا بنعرف إنه كثير صعب إنه إحنا نغير نظام أو كامل أو حكومة كاملة، فهاي المشاكل موجودة، وتحديدنا يعني تخلصنا من المشاكل اللي بتأثر على الديمقراطية هي مهمة جدا صعبة يعني، وبواجهها جميع الشعوب. هذا اللي قدرت أجمعه. إذا نسيت شيء
Can I say one last thing? Can I say one last thing? That regarding the question of Daniel, yes, that we need in 10 years that Tunisia has a democracy and a stable country, not in the means of the past, mean a dictatorship and everybody is stable. That we, in the other side of the Mediterranean, we need some countries like us, that the people has karama, has dignity to live in, and has employees. So we, from the European Union and from the other countries, from the Gulf and from the Arabic world, that we need no interference, just cooperation in economy. And we need also from the Tunisian comrades to have freedoms of expression, human rights respected, and a huge society. So we need it for our common future.
لمستقبلنا المشترك في الدول البحر المتوسط او الدول الجهة الأخرى من البحر المتوسط، نحتاج لتونس الديمقراطية خلال ال10 سنين القادمة، ونتمنى أنه التدخلات الخارجية إن كان من الاتحاد الأوروبي أو الدول العربية بشكل عام، دول الخليج بشكل خاص، تكون تدخلات من أجل التنمية والتعاون مع تونس والمنطقة من أجل مستقبل مشترك أكثر كرامة واستقرار. طبعا حقوق الإنسان أهم شيء، وتطور في حقوق الإنسان.
Now I think we can move to the questions. Do you have any questions? I'm talking now to our guests. If they would like to make a comment or make a question to any of our guests, please, now is the time to do it. You just need to press the bar and make a comment if you would like to make a comment or a question. Meanwhile, people perhaps think their questions. I would like to say that I think it's been very positive, this debate. I think we have detected very important issues regarding freedom of expression in Tunisia. We know the dangers and we know the problems, but also we could look to some opportunities ahead in time. I think the biggest danger of Tunisia is the context of the Arab world where it sits in. Unfortunately, Tunisia, you know, it has Algeria and Libya, two countries that have very different systems, very different political systems. In Algeria, we have sort of authoritarian socialist party. In Libya, we have chaos. I mean, we have sort of very, very, bad political transition going bad. And if we go to the east, we see more authoritarian, more, dictatorial regimes. So I think there is a risk for Tunisia. And that's why it's so important that the Mediterranean, the northern part of the Mediterranean, the European Union, the United States, we protect Tunisia. And we support Tunisia in the economic side. Because as we have discussed, without economic development and social development and other related issues, the democracy could die in darkness. Yes, Laura.
بداية إن إذا أحد من الحضور لديه أي أسئلة أو تعليق يتفضل. تعليق دانيال على اللقاء اليوم، هو يعتقد أنه لقاء إيجابي، ويرجح أن خطورة أو الخطورة التي تواجهها تونس من ناحية الحرية والديمقراطية هي وجودها في موقع يعني خطر، خلينا نحكي. وجود تونس داخل الوطن العربي أو في منطقة الشرق الأوسط بشكل عام هي إحدى المشاكل اللي ممكن تواجهها من أجل الحرية والديمقراطية. فهي بتحدها مثلا دولتين مختلفات تماما في الحكم السياسي أو الطبقة السياسية الموجودة فيها، كالجزائر اللي فيها حكم سلطوي اشتراكي خلينا نحكي، وليبيا اللي بتعم فيها الفوضى في الوقت الحالي. كما إنه إذا بنروح أكثر في الوطن العربي بنلاقي أنظمة ديكتاتورية درجة أولى. فقد يكون وجود تونس في هذا المحيط هو أكبر المخاطر اللي ممكن تواجهها في البروسس في طريقها للديمقراطية والحرية. فكدول الاتحاد الأوروبي وأي دول ممكن تدعم، فإحنا بندعم تونس اقتصاديا وبنساعدها دائما لحد ما توصل الاستقرار أو خلينا نحكي والديمقراطية اللي احنا بنطمح لها.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions? Anyone would like to add something? Mansour, I think you want to say something.
Yes, please, quickly. So regarding this very interesting point related to the geopolitical position of Tunisia, map of Tunisia, let's say that the historical relationship with Algeria has been always complementary in the security side. So Algeria never caused a threat for the security of Tunisia, and Tunisia never caused a threat to the security of Algeria. And here, this is in a real asset for the Libyan case. So it is the chaos, of course, but inside that, there is a political process that is rising by force. So they do not have any other choice. And the Libyan, being myself experts on the Libyan affairs, I understand that the problem of Libya is related to the conflict between international forces. What is difficult for Tunisia today in the geopolitical level is not managing the classical relationships with Algeria, France, the United States. Everything is manageable. The difficulty is caused by the new entrant to the map, some Arabic countries who are playing new roles in the map, and they cause some trouble. And here, Tunisia needs to be aware of this and needs to manage this.
Yes, I agree, Mansour, very much. Laura?
Yeah. تمام. بخصوص التأثير الجغرافي السياسي في المنطقة أو موقع تونس وتأثيره على السياسة، هو بداية تاريخ العلاقة مع الجزائر كان دائما مسيطر عليه. فالجزائر لم تهدد أبدا أمن تونس والعكس صحيح. أما بالنسبة لليبيا فبالرغم من الفوضى فهناك في قوى عم تتطور داخل ليبيا. مش عارف إذا فهمتك صح منصور، بس
political process. Yes.
في عندي تطور أو سياسي داخل ليبيا. الصعوبة تأتي هنا من التدخلات الجديدة العربية في المنطقة أو في الخارطة الجغرافية المحيطة بشكل عام، وذلك لأن تونس تحافظ على علاقتها مع الاتحاد الأوروبي، مع أمريكا، مع فرنسا وإلى آخره. ولكن التدخلات بعض الدول العربية اللي دخلت جديد على الخطة الجيوسياسية هي التي قد تهدد أو تواجه فيها تونس صعوبة بسبب موقع الجغرافي.
Yes.
ما راح نسيت إيش منصور.
Thank you very much.
I mean, we really are out of time. I don't know if you realize, guys, we've been almost 2 hours non-stop of conversation. And as you can feel, as me, we feel like we're just getting started. I don't know if you feel it, that we're just sort of getting started. There's so many issues that we would like to discuss. Social media, economic, politics, international relations. All these are related to freedom of expression. And since last time I went to Tunisia was in 2010, sort of, it's been already, 2014. So it was after the revolution. I found a very vibrant Tunisia coming to modernity, developing slower perhaps than others countries, but nevertheless a country looking ahead, looking to the future. And that is something that I already proved with you, with your presentations. I can see that Tunisia is looking ahead. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us your knowledge and help us understand what are the challenges and opportunities in Tunisia today, especially regarding freedom of expression. Stay tuned for more debates. Stay tuned for more activities. I'm planning to do sometime another activity with Tunisia, with Tunis. So I hope you can join me as well. And I have other debates coming along that I think you will find very interesting. With all that, I think we should stop here. If you don't want to say or add anything else, I would declare this debate finished. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I think we should all clap because it's been such a great debate. And really would like, well, the next thing I will do, of course, I will prepare a video. I will share with you the video so you can share with your network. I will also write a report and a press release. The press release will come tomorrow, so the media will know that we did this debate. And I will write sort of report about the whole event because there's so many ideas here that I think it needs to be put on white on black, okay? So all that would be on paper. I will send you the report so you can add or change or do whatever you want, okay? And thank you. Thank you so much.
Tunis.
Thank you. Thank you. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you so much, guys. It was interesting.
Laura, I think Laura needs to have a big applause. Laura, it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Thank you, guys. Whenever you want, I'm available.
Thank you, Laura. You've been great. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye. مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.
بسلامة.
مع السلامة.